Good afternoon, my name is Daniel Mayhew and welcome back to session 4, which is entitled Preparing for Interviews. The aims of today's session are to make you aware of the different styles of interview, to provide you with some useful hints and tips in preparing for an interview, to understand what to do after an interview, and to increase your confidence and make you a successful candidate. A number of you may not have attended an interview in the past, and it can be quite a daunting prospect. So hopefully today will be a good insight into how they are operated and how you can maximize your chances of being offered a job. To those of you who have had an interview, hopefully today's session will provide some insight into how to conduct yourself at future interviews. So first off, we're going to discuss different interview styles. First off would be a panel interview. Now, panel interviews are used very commonly across different applications and different selection processes within the hiring process of an organization. So they are one of the most commonly used processes for a company. Typically, it would be you, the interviewee, being interviewed by 2 or more interviewers, so 2 or more people from the organization where you're looking to work. And usually this would involve the manager, so the manager you'd be working for, a member of the senior management team of the organization to make sure that you are a good fit for the organization, and a member of the HR team to make sure you'll fulfill all the criteria necessary for the job. Between them, they will often ask you a range of questions relevant to the role, relevant to the company, and relevant to the different areas of the organization they have deemed important, and you'll be graded upon those answers provided. What they will then do after the presentation and after the interview will be to collate their answers, collate their scoring, and after the series of interviews they're conducting, look at the best candidate based on the paper answer that they have been given. As part of this, they may also ask you to do a group presentation to them to show your presentation skills, perhaps to talk about yourself or how you would demonstrate how you would work within a particular role. Secondly, we would have a telephone Skype interview. Typically, these are done remotely. So when you are working with an organization and you may be working from home, or the person you are looking to work with is actually based in another office or another part of the country. This is very often in the first stage in the interview process, where they are effectively what's called filtering a large number of candidates who may have completed an application form or sent their CV and are doing their initial review as to who would be appropriate into the role. This is what is called sifting, and this is a cost-effective way of doing so because there are no travel expenses involved and the interviews can take place quite quickly. So this is a fantastic way for a company to get to know you. It's a chance for you to also ask questions about the organization. And it's also going to be a fantastic way to get to know your employer through this medium if you're going to be working remotely. This is particularly true when we're all working remotely, as we are currently doing. Another way that a company might decide to interview you is what's called an assessment center. An assessment center is typically a half day, a full day, or at least 2 or 3 hours, where a number of candidates, usually towards the final stages of the application process, are sifted into the final 2 or 3 applicants suitable for the job. So typically, this might be a large number of applicants within the assessment center. So there could be anywhere between 20 and 50 people in the assessment center. Throughout this assessment center, you'll be asked to complete a number of different activities. These can range from group activities, individual activities, through to interviews. And this can take place, as I said, either a half day or a full day. The whole process is observed and assessed throughout the day. So they are not just looking at how you're conducting yourself within the tasks, but actually between tasks. So how you interact with other candidates, how you interact with those who are interviewing you. And it's a really thorough way of a company getting to know the sort of person that you are. These assessment centres and these assessment days can be run both in person and online. So it is good to get an idea of how these processes work. If you're ever invited to an assessment centre, there's a number of different types of activities that you can expect to take part in as part of this. So as previously mentioned, group discussions, role plays, so you'll be asked to play the role of a manager or someone conducting the work that you'll be looking to do as part of the application process. There may well be a panel interview towards the end of the day if you were successful during the rest of the day. They may ask you to complete and deliver a presentation, either pre-prepared or prepared on the day, to either the people you are interviewing with or as part of the larger group. And they may ask you to complete some competency testing. So these could be numeracy, literacy, or personality tests. So as I said, the assessment centre is a very thorough way of the organisation you're applying to, getting to know the candidates who are applying to their job. But usually, as I said, this is towards the end of the application process when they're looking to understand who the best 3 or 4 candidates are. Aptitude tests are used by companies to further conduct sifting of a large group of candidates into a smaller number of candidates who can then be selected to take part in interviews. An aptitude test can be done on your numeracy, so how good you are with numbers. They might give you example spreadsheets. They might give you some sums to do in a defined period of time. They may ask you to complete some psychometric testing and personality testing. So these are there to design to test your personality or to see what sort of personality you have. And there's no right or wrong way of answering these questions. You just answer them to the best of your knowledge and the best of your abilities, because they're looking to get to know you and making sure you're the right fit for the organisation. You might also be asked to complete some literacy tests as well. These might be what's called verbal reasoning tests. These verbal reasoning tests will give you a paragraph and a number of questions based on that paragraph, so you can best test your understanding of your knowledge of what's been written in the previous paragraph. These are often conducted under timed sections or segments, so you may be asked to complete a certain number of questions within a minute, or you are given 10 to 15 minutes to complete all questions. The great thing about these tests is you can do some practice examples online, and there are many available. So you could type into Google or any search engine, practice numeracy tests or literacy tests, practice assessment centre tests, and these will give you some examples of the type of thing you can be looking to do during your assessment centre. Some companies may also send you aptitude tests to complete before being invited to interview. A number of companies use these as a way to sift their massive numbers of applications into a more clearly defined list of capable candidates. A further type of interview would be a competency-based interview. A competency-based interview is typically for graduate level roles and are there to assess how your skills fit in with the company requirements. Companies are looking to understand what your transferable skills are. So to remind you what transferable skills are, they are skills you have built up in other areas of your life, be it part-time work, be it your university, A-level, B.Tech, GCSE levels, volunteering, other areas of your life, sports, other areas that you're interested in, and how they can be transferred to the company you're applying to. But they're really to understand how you can provide examples of how you meet specific requirements of the role. So understanding the different types of interviews that can take place. When you are successful in reaching the interview stage, the company who you are applying to will usually inform you what sort of interview style will take place. And this will usually be done either over the phone or via email. If they don't tell you what sort of interview it is, never be afraid to ask the HR team as to the format. This will help you to prepare and to feel more relaxed about what you can expect. So now we're going to go into how to prepare for an interview. So by now, hopefully you understand what sort of interview you might be taking part in. So now we're going to go through how to prepare for that interview. So there are some really key things that I wish you to understand on this slide. So as I said, a number of you may not have had an interview in the past. A number of you may have had an interview in the recent past. But these are some really key things to help you get on the right path for your interview. So dress is really important. Dress is really a good way of showing how serious you are about applying for the role. It also shows that you're prepared and are willing to put across your best self when you're going to interview. Key thing to bear in mind here is, what is the interview for? If you're working for a customer service role, if you're working in coaching, if you're working in different areas of business or within other areas of organizations, each will have its own sense of dress or the type of dress that is appropriate. So for example, if you're going for a coaching role, it may be more appropriate to wear a coaching outfit as opposed to a suit. But for certain roles, of course, it'd be more appropriate to wear a suit. Prepare the night before, so make sure, even if you're wearing a tracksuit for a coaching interview, that the appearance of the dress you are wearing is washed and ironed, so you're putting across the best version of yourself. Do you know the location of the interview? If it's taking place online, do you have a link to the interview? If you're meeting someone face to face, make sure you plan your route well in advance. Think about how you're going to get there, if you're going to need a lift, if you're going to take public transport, and make sure this is planned well in advance. But also give yourself plenty of extra time. You do not want the stress of running late or not understanding where you are going. Arriving late to an interview gives a bad impression to the employer, so always aim to arrive at the interview at least 10 minutes early and make yourself known to the person behind the front desk. If you do arrive earlier than this also gives you time to prepare and to relax a little bit before you're going into the interview. Do your research. Researching a company is a fantastic way of proving how dedicated you are towards learning about the organization, and then how you can demonstrate those skills that are very relevant to the employer in which you're looking to be employed by. So have a look at the company website, explore their social media. If you have contacts at the organization, reach out to those organizations and contacts to build that knowledge and information. What are they looking for? What key things can you mention during your interview that will help you stand out from the competition? And revisit the job description. So what skills are required in the job description? As stated in the previous presentation, they are usually listed in order of importance from most important to least important. So if you're feeling a bit nervous and you're worried about how you're going to come across, think about the top 3 or 4 skills on that job description that you can demonstrate in your interview. And within this, think about some recent examples about how you can demonstrate these skills. What work experience have you done? What volunteering have you done? What projects have you taken part in as part of your school life? How can you use these examples to best show and demonstrate your skills? So the STAR method is the way you would take the information that you have learnt about the organization and apply it to answers to questions that the employer may ask. And these are specifically around questions where they're asking you to demonstrate either certain traits or certain skills that you might have. For example, tell me about a time when you've worked well in a team, or tell me about a time when you've worked with a difficult customer, or tell me about a time when you've met or exceeded your targets. The STAR method would be used for these questions. So STAR stands for situation, task, action, and result. And these are given in order when you deliver your answer at an interview. So the situation part of the STAR method is to set the scene. So where you were working, when you were working, the type of team you were working in, etc. The task is then to describe the purpose. So for example, if you were trying to show that you were demonstrating as part of a team when you've worked well as part of a team, is what is the purpose of working well as part of a team? And that would be to ensure the goals of the company are met or the goals of your team are met. The action would be explaining what you did or what you are doing within that task. So what did you specifically do within that part of the organization? And what was the result of that action? So how can you demonstrate that you worked well as part of that team? How did working well as part of a team help the company achieve its goals, for example? And this is the STAR technique. So again, this is used for when the company that are interviewing you are looking for you to demonstrate certain skills and certain traits that are relevant to the question that they're asking. You wouldn't necessarily use this technique when a company may ask you, so tell me about yourself, or tell me some information about what interests you about this company. This is specifically for questions about demonstrating your skills and traits. So a good activity for you to take part in after this presentation today would be to use the STAR technique and think about how you can demonstrate your skills. So the following question is here to demonstrate the sort of questions that may be asked at an interview. It is a very common interview question, and excelling at answering this question and learning the technique of the STAR technique will help you demonstrate your skills very effectively. So, can you give me an example of when you've worked well in a team? Use the STAR method to deliver an excellent answer, perhaps work with a school friend, perhaps work with a teacher, perhaps work with a parent, brother, sister to help you answer these questions. And that will help ensure that you give the best version of yourself at interview. When it comes to telephone or Skype interviews, it is important to prepare for these interviews in exactly the same way as you would with a normal interview. In addition to this, it is really important that you have a reliable connection. So you, for example, if you are conducting a telephone interview, that you are a place with a good reception, or if your phone connects to Wi-Fi, that it can connect to Wi-Fi, and that the Wi-Fi connection is strong. If you are conducting a Skype interview on camera, or a Zoom interview, or a Microsoft Teams interview, that you are in a place where there are minimum distractions taking place. So hopefully you can find a quiet space to conduct the interview, but also that the background on the camera is clean and not too cluttered, and hopefully focuses just on your face and your shoulders. Dress as you would for a face-to-face interview. So we mentioned dress previously in the presentation. So dress appropriately for the role that you are applying for. And it's important when you're conducting phone interviews or Skype online interviews that your tone of voice is often used even more so than you would do face-to-face. So make sure you are delivering your answer in a positive and enthusiastic tone. At the end of most interviews, if not all interviews, the company who you're applying to work for will often ask, do you have any questions for us? And if they don't, I would always suggest asking a question anyway. The reason for this, it shows that you have a genuine interest in the company and the job that you are applying to. So having some good questions often shows insight into the organization. But also on the flip side of this is making sure that you don't have a question that can be answered very easily through a bit of research on their website or has already been answered in the interview. because that might show that you haven't done your research or you haven't been listening to the interviewer. So some great examples of questions that you might want to ask are, what do you feel are the biggest challenges the company are facing right now? And if you were looking for a job as a graduate, you might ask, what are your other graduates doing 3 to 4 years after they've taken part in this graduate scheme? Again, these two questions, I hope you feel, demonstrate that the person is interested in the company and they're interested in knowing how they can progress through the organisation if they were to continue working there. As I said, this usually takes place at the end of the interview. There may be other questions you want to ask as well, so feel free to ask them, but make them as relevant as you can to the job as you possibly can. And after the interview. So after the interview is also very important as preparing. So this is your opportunity to further learn if you haven't been successful. It is always good to ask for feedback, and it's a good chance to learn about how to conduct yourself better in the next interview, whether you weren't or were successful. So a great thing to do is to make a note of some of the questions you were asked and how you answered them. So this could act as a very good reference for future interviews. And if you apply for similar jobs and get answered similar questions at each of those interviews, then there's a very good chance that that question will be asked at further interviews. Always ask for feedback. So after the interview, I would suggest sending a thank you note to the person who interviewed you, but also when they give you their answer, so whether you're successful or not, I would always ask for feedback. Again, this allows you to further improve your interviewing skills for future interviews. Now, a very tricky and challenging thing that you might be asked to do is to negotiate your salary, so a salary that you will be paid as part of the job. So here again is where research pays. So potentially you should research the going rates for similar jobs in your local area. So if you're applying to a coaching job for a particular club, review what the other going rates for salaries are for that particular role in the particular town or city. Is there room for negotiation? So if they offer you a salary, there's a great chance for you then to ask if it will be increased or reviewed after a probationary period. And a probationary period is typically 6 to 9 months, where a company are testing to see if you are a best fit for that role. And very often at the end of this probation period, the salary can be renegotiated. A really great thing to do is to consider not just your take-home pay, so the salary that you will be taking on, but also consider any extras that the company are looking to provide you. So some companies now offer free gym membership. They may offer you opportunities for promotion. They may offer you all sorts of different incentives to take on to the company rather than just salary. So make sure you consider it all as part of the same package. So the final question there would be, if you don't feel the salary or the wage is adequate, does it reflect your skills and experience? And if it doesn't match your skills and experience, then is this the right opportunity for you? Are you willing to work for the salary they are offering you? These are very important questions and they are quite difficult questions. Experience at answering these questions often comes through experience. So you can only get better at answering these questions if you're able to go to a number of interviews. Perhaps you should talk these questions through with with your parents, with guardians, with teachers, with managers who you've worked with in the past, how they would suggest you answer these questions, because these are very important questions to answer. And the final thing to remember is to reflect on the fact that actually getting an interview is a fantastic achievement. The number of people applying for roles, the number of people who have gone through the sifting process, the number of people who have gone through assessment centres or interviews, to even get an interview in the first place is a fantastic achievement. The best outcome is obviously getting the job, and that's a fantastic achievement again. But also, if you don't get offered the job, it is a chance for you to learn and develop. So always be sure to get feedback. If they don't offer feedback, make sure you ask for it. Thank you for listening to me for the last 4 sessions. I hope they've provided some good insight into a variety of different areas within employability. And I wish you all the very best of luck with your careers. Thank you very much.